Week 2 of the MLB regular season begins on Monday night between the Cardinals and the Padres. In this Locked On Cardinals Padres crossover, we're going to look back at what the teams have done up to this point and then preview what's in store for this 3-game series.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Hafford, and I'm a national radio sports anchor, born and raised in the Lou and a lifetime Cardinals fan. And I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter, X, at JD Sports Radio. You can also follow the podcast at LO_Cardinals. I want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We're also on YouTube. You should stop by, like, subscribe, comment, interact with us. Don't be shy. Hit the notification button so you know when new episodes are posted. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. As you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, we are not alone today. The St. Louis Cardinals and the Padres are set to begin a series on the field tonight at Petco Park in San Diego. And to talk about things with us today is the host of Locked On Padres, Javier Reyes. Javi, how are you, my friend? How are things going in Padres Nation thus far this season?
I think they've been chaotically fine. They've had really eventful games. There's been for every extremely bad thing, there's been an extremely good thing. So it's been baseball, dare I say. And the fact that the Padres have also played more games along with the Dodgers, who the Cardinals just faced, than everybody else because of the Soul Series, is fun too, because there's more for us to chew on, I think.
What do you think about that Soul Series? Are you fan or foe? I mean, I get putting our teams over into other countries and spreading, Major League Baseball. I love that idea, but just weird timing to do it at the start of the season and then send you guys back to spring training and then start the season again. That was odd to me.
The timing part I didn't get. I mean, I'd like to imagine Major League Baseball had its reasons for that, but for me, it's the timing combined with its West Coast teams. So you're kind of cannibalizing one aspect of your reach, you know what I mean? Because this is the debut game, so it's why not at least try and get a northern team or East Coast team, I should say. Do that way. It's okay. 6:00 is at least feasible for a lot of people. Yeah. The West Coast, basically everyone there, they're just not going to see the first real baseball game for either the Dodgers or the Padres, whichever your affiliation is. I didn't understand that. At least if you're going to do the West Coast things in Seoul, make it middle of the season. You know what I mean? Not the first time people get to watch their team. So I didn't understand the timing of it, although the idea and the execution on the field and in the country was really cool. I was just why that one part? I didn't understand it. And I'm not just saying this basically people as a bias,
they're leaving, they're coming home from the bars and the games were starting.
Yeah, it's literally exactly they could just be on some bender or whatever. They're oh wow, the Padres are on. How about that? Let's just stay.
I'm staying up 24/7 to go see the Padres.
Yeah, exactly. So that part of it I didn't get, but the idea, I love when baseball adds different games. They have the throwback game a little bit later this year. We had the Field of Dreams game a few years ago that they, in my opinion, stepped on stupidly the next year after. Hey, let's have this great walk-off victory between two, big market teams, and then we're gonna have the Cubs and Reds for some reason. I just have never understand why they did that. And so that was very silly. But overall, really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, before we jump into the series between our two teams, let's kind of recap what we're just coming off of. The Padres 3-3 on the year so far. You split the Soul Series with the Dodgers, 1 apiece, and then you guys took on the Giants. Curb stomped them yesterday, 13-4. Give me one positive and one negative takeaway from the series against the Giants.
I'd say let's get the bad news out of the way first, I guess. The bad news, I'd say, not really any dominant pitching performances really at all. There wasn't it wasn't necessarily bad. Dylan Cease wasn't bad in his Padres debut, just a little bit fine. Joe Musgrove was certainly not that great in both of his starts. So I'd say that's a bit of a red flag so far. Yu Darvish was good, but other than that, Tom Cosgrove, a big time reliever for them last year, he's been awful. He only got 1 out and gave up 6 and basically completely killed the Padres game by himself in that 1 outing. So that Michael King's velocity was down, which was a little concerning, and he was walking a lot of batters. So I'd say just the lack of basically no great starting pitching performances or even relief pitching performances outside of Yu Darvish, which is funny because Darvish is the one that had the bad season last year. So, that's baseball. The positive would be, and it's a microcosm thing, it's me projecting and all that, going off just a few games, but I really think the Padres have more depth. I know that the allegations that they are 4 deep in the lineup, Tatis, Bogarts, Machado, last year's Soto, and then, this I guess would be Hassan Kim. I just don't think is true, and I didn't feel that way before the season. With guys like Graham Pauley and Jackson Merrill being some exciting upside plays in terms of prospects. Luis Campusano is better as a catcher than anything they got from Austin Nola last year. I think Jay Cronenworth could get a lot better. And yeah, I just like their lineup depth a lot more this year. And I really don't think that it's going to be just this fluky 1 series thing. Not that I expect Eggy Rosario and Graham Pauley to just hit absolute moonshots in the bottom 9th inning all the time. But I like that the offense, the bottom of it, the unexpected areas has produced. And I think that it's legit too. I don't think this is just a weird weekend series thing. There's hope there.
Yeah, that's something that actually kind of bit the Cardinals in their series against the Dodgers. I'll start with my negative as well. The pitching staff gave up 9 home runs against LA, and none of them to Shohei Ohtani or Freddie Freeman or Will Smith. It was Mookie Betts who's clobbering everything that he sees right now, but it was Teoscar Hernandez and it was Max Muncy doing damage against them. And, when you're taking on that Dodgers lineup, if you're not going to get those guys out, you're really in trouble because that top of the order is just disgusting. So that was rough, seeing the ball fly over the wall. And it wasn't like they were hitting multiple 3-run shots or something like that. It was a lot of solo blasts, but at the same time, they add up. So it's okay to give up 1 or 2 here and there, but when you're giving up 3 or 4 at a time, it's just, they'll add up. And if you're, offense can't keep up with them, you're in big trouble. My positive for the Dodgers series for the Cardinals, I kind of like you, where I like what I saw from some of the younger guys, the names that maybe don't jump off the page for a lot of other teams and other cities, guys like Victor Scott II and Mason Wynn. Defense was a real issue for the Cardinals last year. It was like a shockingly thing that happened to them where all of a sudden they went from winning 5 Gold Gloves to nothing. They were just not even in contention defensively for anything. And that was very weird for the Cardinals last year. And Victor Scott in center field and Mason Wynn now at shortstop. That was kind of nice. They looked really, really smooth out there. And I like what I saw from them in center and at short. So that's a little something that, hopefully will continue as they go on into the season a little bit more. We're going to jump into the Cardinals and Padres series. We'll get specifics. We'll start with the pitching staff next on this Locked On crossover. The sports calendar is loaded, and FanDuel is making it even more exciting to get in on the action because right now new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 that you can use to bet on the tournament, Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, and so much more. I got a lot going on right now in the sports world. The Final Four obviously is set on the men's side. The 2 number 1 seeds are left in Purdue and UConn. You got the Cinderella story of number 11 seed NC State, number 4 seed Alabama's the other team that nobody's talking about. It's always those 3 that get brought up. Purdue and their big man, Zach Edey. Going to have the Wolfpack in game 1 on Saturday, followed by the defending champion Huskies, who will take on Alabama. Both Purdue and UConn, big-time favorites. And that would be such a great championship game if it happens. But, you can't overlook what NC State's been doing. Can they continue this Cinderella story? We'll find out. On the women's side tonight, you've got Iowa and LSU. Caitlin Clark back in action. That should be fun to watch. And, of course, you got Major League Baseball with our Cardinals and Padres facing each other. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and make your first bet a big win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Are you struggling to close deals? B2B selling is tougher than ever, and that's why I want to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high-value customers drive higher revenue, which is always great, and increase sales performance. Now, Sales Navigator is going to help you target the right buyers, surface key signals such as, job changes or which accounts you should prioritize, and shows you your hidden allies so that you can find those buyers that are more likely to convert. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date, first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with the people that matter. They're not going to waste your time. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That is linkedin.com/lockedon, LOCKEDON, for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon and get started. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and then have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? I had it on this morning, and as soon as Stephen A. Smith came on, I was like, bye, I'm out of here. Because he came on. I guess he was on vacation, and he came on. He's like, did you miss me? And he's
oh yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
I'm like, oh boy. Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. A free 24/7 sports streaming channel is programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all of the screaming. And it's not just Stephen A, man. It happens all over the channel. So Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals and Locked On Padres your first listens every day. You can leave your comments on YouTube as well as on Twitter X anytime you want. Your feedback is always welcome and encouraged. Good or bad, we're here to get through it together. Once again, we are joined by Javier Reyes, Locked On Padres host, and we're going to get into the series between our two teams, the Cardinals and the Padres. Padres, again, 3-3. Cardinals come in at 1-3 on the year. Let's start with these pitching probables. Thought it was hilarious because today is April Fool's Day, Javi. Kyle Gibson making his Cardinals debut for the regular season, at least, against Matt Waldron. And because I play MLB The Show all the time, I know exactly who Matt Waldron is because he's the knuckleballer that when somebody gets them, they use him against you all the time. And he's a pain in the butt. Tell us about the knuckleballer, Matt Waldron, and what you like and dislike about what he brings to the table this year.
First of all, I will always support a knuckleball pitcher.
Yeah,
I will always just, it's always just kind of cool. It's like a dying breed and all that. What's fun about Matt Waldron is that there's kind of not too much known. Don't get me wrong, like he did pitch for the Padres last year, and he was fine. It didn't matter. There were games that didn't matter, but 4.35 ERA isn't like the worst I've ever seen in my life for a guy that you just kind of called up and then had to start at the end of the year for a bunch of games. So he was good in that regard. He didn't go super deep into games. He's impressed in spring, and I think that's why he got the gig. It was between him, some of the players that the Padres got in the Juan Soto trade, Johnny Brito, Randy Vasquez. Instead, Vasquez is not. I think he's on a minor league assignment or has been designated there for a little bit and probably for a while. We'll have to see how that transpires. So he's farm depth, and Brito's been put into the bullpen, and they just really liked what they saw from Matt Waldron. And look, with pitching coach Ruben Niebla, I believe in that man to potentially get the best out of anybody, but I do like that he just, one, had a fine spring, and two, decent repertoire of pitchers. He doesn't just have a knuckleball. He's also got the sinker and four-seamer that he throws a decent amount of time, along with the sweeper that he's tinkered with, from what I've seen a little bit, to add a little bit more break on it, especially vertically. So, because that was one area that I think he struggled in last year vertically with his sweeper. So hopefully he impresses, or at the very minimum, he's a 5-starter. So you're just kind of hoping that he goes out there and does what 5-starters do. He can eat innings, not implode. The Padres over the past few seasons have had these guys that are just, every now and then they have to call up these guys, whether it be signing Vincent Velasquez and Jake Arrieta or trading for Rich Hill last year, that they find themselves with these washed up sort of pitchers that are just getting bombarded. You don't want to have a Patrick Corbin as your 5-starter. You want to have someone who's just okay. Kyle Gibson, you know what I mean? Like Kyle Gibson, while not an incredible starter and, not to throw any slander, but for a team that seemingly has had a need for starting pitching since I was in high school, finally adds starting pitching, and it's not necessarily the most exciting in the world, although I know that he's not the only one they added. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that transpires. And against this Cardinals lineup that just had to face the Dodgers, maybe you kind of get them at the right time, making your debut in Petco. So I'm not expecting too much from him, but it's fun that it's not like there's the word isn't out on him yet. Like it for those other pitchers I just mentioned that you're just like desperate at that point employing
Now
them.
you're bringing up that he throws some other pitches. Is he more like an R.A. Dickey type of pitcher where it's not
Oh,
like
you know what? I have no idea, but I'm running with it. Yeah, he's already Dickey. You heard it first from JD. We got ourselves a former Cy Young winner in the 5th spot. So I'm all for it. Yeah.
I just mean as far as where, RA would come out and throw some normal pitches, a decent amount, and then he would just, baffle you with the knuckleball. So I was wondering, or is it like the old school Tom Candiotti type of stuff where it's just, that's all he's got, man. He's just knuckleballing every once in a while. He might throw a straight ball, but it's a pretty good mix is what you're telling us?
Yeah, it's a pretty good mix, actually. This isn't it is genuinely a repertoire based on just what he did last year. Who knows? Like, again, that's the other fun part about the unknown. Maybe he ditches some pitches. Maybe he uses some pitches more. The knuckleballer, the only thing is that it wasn't his put away pitch. 9.6% only with his knuckleball last year, while 22.2% with the sinker, 13.7 with the four seamer, sweeper 13.8, and then cutter 23. What is it? 3%. So that's not his put away pitch. That seems to be the thing that he uses the most compared to the other pitchers, but he's not like he's banking on it to get guys out. Again, I'm curious to see how it pans out because again, he's still kind of young. He's got at least a little bit of youth. He's not having too much experience, obviously at the major league level, but from what we saw last year, not the worst dude ever. And in spring, he impressed. So maybe that's why, because I thought that basically universally everyone was like, it's going to be Brito, it's going to be Vasquez as a 5th starter. And this guy came out and impressed in the spring. So maybe they saw something.
All right. You mentioned Kyle Gibson for the Cardinals.
Yeah.
He'll be the starter tonight. 15 wins last year with the Baltimore Orioles, which was a great team last year. But when you look more at the numbers and you see the amount of hits that he gave up, and when the Cardinals signed him, it was one of those, what? Hey, what? Like, hold on a second. Because there was a guy that you're very familiar with by the name of Blake Snell, who was still out there. And, Cardinals fans had their hopes that, it was going to be Sonny Gray and somebody of significance. And it ended up being Sonny Gray and a Lance Lynn and a Kyle Gibson, which just doesn't move the needle all that much. It wouldn't for any franchise, but for a franchise that was coming off of an ugly season last year where out of nowhere, everybody's like, how are we a 90-loss team? What just happened here? And to, the fan base obviously thinking, hey, we got to really amp this up, man. Let's go get some of these pitchers. Why not bring Jordan Montgomery back in? And it just didn't happen.
Heck, Frankie Montas, take a flyer on that dude. It's weird. Like for me, I think last year felt like and this is just my opinion as an outsider, like a coming down to earth moment for the Cardinals where it's like, you guys can't just not spend on pitching every year. I remember, I forgot when Steven Matz was signed, but that was like the first big get in a while that I'd seen in terms of free agency, not necessarily trades. So I was just like, okay, so this is your issues for a while, and you bring in Matz to be the guy who hasn't really done much for them. So I don't know. And again, I do like Sonny Gray, like I do, but I think that this is a team that has been desperately needing starting pitching, while the Padres, I think their need for starting pitching has been a little bit overrated by a lot of people. I think they need it, but I don't think they've been in as desperate a situation as the other teams. I think the Cards had like a little bit of a dang. Wow, we can't just keep bargain bin hunting. We actually have to go and get some guys. So we'll see how that all pans out.
The good old days of Tony La Russa and Dave Duncan being able to fix guys who were broken and thrown away and turn them into 15-game winners. Those days are long gone. And as you mentioned, there were other names out there, like a lot of the guys that the Padres didn't sign, guys like Michael Wacha, Nick Martinez. These are some guys that, I thought were better choices than somebody like a Kyle Gibson and a Lance Lynn, just based on age alone, because these guys are, 36, 37 years old. And, you mentioned not spending money on the starting rotation. They actually do. They just spend it on the wrong guys.
That's what I should say. Yeah, that's what I should say. Yeah,
Wainwright a ton of money last year. And just there were the results were awful. So when they have decided to spend on free agency specifically on the pitching staff, whether it's starters or relievers, they crap out and they do it wrong. And so doing it this year, it was odd. We were hoping that because in the NL Central, it's not quite as competitive as what you got going on in the NL West, where it seemed like whichever team in the Central of the top 4, I don't want to say the Pirates are, way down here or anything like that, but we know they're not going to spend money. So the other 4 teams, if they had made that extra leap and signed one of those big names, whether if Jordan Montgomery goes to one of those teams, you're like, wow, that's the clear-cut favorite in the NL Central. And none of them did it.
Yeah.
They all stayed away. And,
everyone stayed away. I think
it was shocking to me. I don't know why it went down that way. And Arizona was like, thanks, which obviously not going to do your Padres any favorites.
Exactly. Apparently the National League West is the only division with teams that try. So that's what I learned this offseason.
You're sure you guys don't want them?
Are you sure? Okay. Boston, you want to give up the best? Yeah, like, hey, Boston, you want to give up the best player you've had since Pedro Martinez for nothing? Okay, great. This is fun. I really like being in this division. Yeah, but like the division thing is such a great point, and not to get on the whole people are cheap sort of soapbox, but it's just there was a good stretch, and I think it's over now. Like I think the Pirates are at least could be a potentially competitive team. Cubs were competitive last year. The Reds, right? Like there are teams in that division, but there was like a 3-4 year stretch where it's just Brewers Cardinals and. Both of them, the Cardinals do make some trades for Goldschmidt, Arenado, so they do a little bit, but the Brewers basically just chilled for like 5 years when they had the division outside the Cardinals and a free playoff spot every year. So if anyone wants to know what's the problem with baseball sometimes, look at Milwaukee. At least St. Louis can say we've won before. You know what I mean? The Cardinals could not. The Cardinals, or not the Cardinals, the Brewers, it's like 1986. I'm pretty sure like Independence Day hadn't come out yet. Like Beverly Hills Cop just came out probably around that time. So like, what are you doing? So yeah, that's the thing with the division, but we'll see. It's probably going to be a lot more competitive this year.
The other probables for our series for Tuesday, you got Michaelis against Yu Darvish. You're pretty familiar with those guys. And then Wednesday, left-hander Zach Thompson for the Cardinals against Joe Musgrove for the Padres. So, some good matchups here. You don't really know what you're getting out of Zach Thompson. He's former first-round pick, got a lot of upside, gave up 3 home runs to the Dodgers. But outside of that, he was actually pretty good. It wasn't as bad as the numbers say. So it should be a decent pitching series for both teams. Now, offensively, the Padres, they lost a guy by the name of Juan Soto, all right, in the offseason. You had to give him up, trade him to the Yankees. You get a haul in return. But you've still got the names that you mentioned: Xander Bogaerts, Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis Jr. How have they looked so far this season, and has there been any other surprises? You mentioned a couple of those names at the beginning, like Campusano. Is there any other surprises that maybe Cardinal fans aren't aware of that you'd be like, you might want to keep an eye on this guy?
Yeah, I will say Campusano. I want everyone. It has been my bit and my mission for like a year now that I genuinely do not understand why, again, not to get too soapboxy, why the baseball community and projections just hate this guy. And including the Padres, by the way. For years, they were just bringing him up. All right, you play 3 games, up, you had a bad one, send him back down. Like, and it's not like they had, Buster Posey or better comparison, Yadier Molina behind the plate, right? Yeah. They didn't have that. They had Austin Nola, who, had a surgery thing and couldn't like see properly last year that they figured out later. And it's just like, I don't understand why those guys have earned unquestioned, like Campusano take a back seat. And guess what happened? Last year gets called up, finally gets consistent playing time, and he's awesome. JD, let me tell you, for people who don't remember last year, the coming out party for one Luis Campusano, this is a guy that had like a 134 WRC plus last year. He didn't hit for like necessarily a ton of power, but 7 home runs in 49 games, good slash line, 319, 356, 491. And so far, he hasn't taken a walk yet, but he's slugging 600 and he's got a 160 WRC plus. He got lucky with 1 home run in the blowout game on Sunday. It was like it was only like a 3 out of 30 ballpark home run thing. But even still, he hits. And yes, the defense needs some work, but I don't think his defense is horrific or anything like that. I don't think that this is, name whatever horrific defensive catcher, Dante Bichette, whatever you want to bring up. Did Dante Bichette play catcher? I don't know why.
He's an outfielder.
He was an outfielder. All right, there's some Dante guy.
I thought you were going to throw shade at Wilson Contreras. You had the opportunity because
I didn't want to, man. I thought it was mean. I thought it was mean. I didn't want to because everyone apparently was throwing shade at him, including the team. Yeah. What's going on here? So I didn't want to do that, but Yeah, like, so my thing is if he can just be slightly below average even, or average, I just think this guy's gonna keep hitting. He hasn't shown that he won't at, like, any level, so I'd keep an eye out for him, and then Jackson Merrill and Grant Pauley are, like, the 2 prospects. The Padres have been reluctant to play Pauley for weird reasons. They apparently like Tyler Wade for some reason. We'll see if they continue playing him, but he hit a home run off of Camilo Doval. Maybe that's the beginning of something. He started the next game, struck out 3 times, got 1 hit. So keep an eye out for him. And then Jackson Merrill, a top 10 prospect in baseball. He's been getting the starting gig a lot. So those are like the unknown type of people. And then there's still, other guys that people know, the top of the order. And Jurickson Profar, not a very good player, but inexplicably better only with the Padres. You've got to hear me out on this. No one understands it. It's got to just be a vibes thing and as a reminder of that, humans play the sport, I guess, right? Like that's part of this sometimes. So those are the people to watch out for. And then otherwise, I will say Machado, and especially Tatis, got to watch out for those guys always. Tatis had the 2 home run game, but it's not like he's been super lighting it up, not just yet. So I definitely keep an eye out for that, especially if against some of the weaker Cardinals pitchers that we don't necessarily know about. He might go off against them. So.
All right. Offensively for the Cardinals side, tough series against the Dodgers. Here's the stat I want to throw out for you, Javi. The Cardinals got more catchers interference calls than home runs in the series. There were 2 of them against the Dodgers.
Oh, no.
Which were significant in helping the Cardinals score runs. Yeah. And they only had 1 home run. That's not a great stat. Your offense is not going to be good when there's more catcher's interference calls than home runs. Nolan Arenado, another shaky start right now. He's hitting 63. He's got 1 hit. Goldie had an ugly spring. Had the 1 good game on opening day against Glass now, and then had 1 hit the rest of the way. Nolan Gorman struck out 9 times in the 4-game series. I'm not really panicking about it all because the Dodgers pitching staff is freaking good.
Very good, yeah.
So
it's a bad team to judge against.
Runs up against the Dodgers bullpen when there were lesser pitchers who came out, but I just know the Cardinals have to hit to win because they're not going to win a lot of pitchers duels this season, and if they ain't hitting, they ain't winning. So those are some of the thoughts on what's going on offensively. Coming up next, though, we're going to give you our keys to victory for both sides as this Locked On Padres, Locked On Cardinals crossover continues. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs as well as the Fire TV stick that you can just plug right into your existing TV and will provide you with access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. And whether it's the, opening week of baseball, now we're into week 2, but the college basketball tournaments for the men's and women's, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. It just makes a lot of sense. Fire TV recently created these really cool Fire TV channels that will deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, and they do it all for free, which includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. They let you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep you up to date on all of the latest in the world of sports, whether it is March Madness, NBA, MLB, NHL, whatever it is you're into, they got you covered, including entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos, whatever you're into. They have it. I'm promising you that. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. That's www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows, which cover every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Once again, Locked On Padres host Javier Reyes joining us here today. All right, let's wrap it up with who we think are going to be the keys to victory for either the Padres or the Cardinals. Who you banking on in this series, Javi?
Honestly, look, it's just in my head, the optics of an overused word for sure, but like the visual of like the Cardinals losing and starting off like 1-6 feels weird to me because they also started off poorly last year and then stayed poorly. So I think you could get like a competitive series, but I think they at least win, one of these. I'm not getting like a sweep vibe at all. And hilariously enough, it'll be the start where whoever's the least exciting Cardinals starter will be the one that gets the win, because that's how this always happens. But
hey, take your pick, Hobby, whichever one. Nobody's excited about any of them. If you were to look at the comments and you can look at the message boards, nobody's
man.
excited about anybody that the Cardinals throw out there. But I guess I would say that would be Kyle Gibson. Everybody's kind of hesitant on what he
Yeah.
offers this year, although because he was getting lit up in the spring, and then his
Mhm.
last start, he went out and was awesome. Like 9 strikeouts was just fantastic. So
Oh
we'll
man.
see.
I think he's the most frustrating pitcher like in the sport since I've been like heavily following it. So I'm going to say since like 2014. This guy, I mean, you're a big baseball guy. I don't know if you've been in those fantasy baseball leagues where you need a starter. Kyle Gibson has been available so many times, and you look and it's always last start, 6 innings, 3 hits, 0 runs, 1 walk, 6 Ks, right? Then he gets obliterated the very next start. He's just the most inconsistent guy. So it depends what version of him shows up. It depends if the Padres hitting gets to him. But I'd also say, just to kind of, I think, is this going to be one of those things where you just need to get to the bullpen? The Padres, they've had some short at bats at times, the offensive explosion games aside, where it's just Tatis grounding out immediately, some Machado double plays, a Bogarts dribbler, things along that line. The young guys are, that's usually what happens with young guys. They'll have, short plate appearances. Graham Pauley went down pretty quick in his first kind of start. So potentially that's where they need to improve, I think. And get to this Cardinals bullpen, which I got to ask you about. I don't know, man. Like, here's the thing. There were years it's like Alex Reyes, and you still have Gallegos. You had Helsley, and still have Helsley, don't get me wrong. And Helsley was like a Cy Young quality reliever that one season a couple years ago. And then they had Jordan Hicks once upon a time. I thought that the Cardinals were about to be like the Royals that year that they won the World Series. And instead, 23rd in bullpen ERA last year. I just, part of me like just thinks, well, you still have Gallegos and Helsley at the top. I even like the Keenan Middleton's acquisition. Like, what's the vibe on the Cardinals bullpen? Is it one that's going to be potentially a strength of this team, or is this like you're hoping they bounce back because otherwise that might be the weakness?
Well, this was one of my keys as well, is because,
Mhm.
all right, so the Dodgers series, we had a rain delay. All right. In the Yamamoto Lance Lynn game. Okay.
Yes.
Everything seemed to be going pretty well for both teams as far as how they were using their bullpen. Well, when Lynn's start, which he was doing very, very well, was shutting out the Dodgers over 4 innings, when he gets stopped because of the rain, the Cardinals had to go into the bullpen and use multiple arms to finish up that game. Oh, and then, by the way, it goes to extra innings. So you have to worry about that too. So they had to burn through a whole bunch of guys to get that victory on Saturday. And we've had a couple of injuries. You mentioned Keenan Middleton hasn't even played for the Cardinals yet. He's he's throwing this week, getting back on the mound. So hopefully he'll be back. They just lost another guy that they got from Seattle named Riley O'Brien, who had an amazing spring. And he pitches once against the Dodgers. Now he's got a flexor problem in his pitching arm. So now you have to call up John King, who did not make the roster. You're already dipping in to AAA arms to bring him up to face the Dodgers, and he's the one who gave up the home run to Max Muncy. They attacked the problems with the bullpen. I thought they did a great job of it in the offseason, but now all of a sudden you had your one guy that was supposed to eat more innings. His start gets shortened, so now the bullpen had to come in and take care of that, and now you've got 2 injuries to 2 arms that you thought you were going to be able to bank on. So now you're kind of in the same boat that you were in last year, where you're feeling like you're running a little thin in the bullpen already, and you're just 4 games into it. So that is definitely something that is going to be a key to these victories if the Cardinals are going to get them, is a guy like a Gibson tonight. We need 6 innings. Michaelis, we need 6 innings out of these guys, at least tonight for sure, just to give them a little bit of rest in case they are needed for more, which, the way this game is these days, your bullpen is very, very important. So you mentioned Helsley. You mentioned Helsley comes in the same situation against the Dodgers and gets ripped and wasn't very good. Velo was down a little bit, which worried some people. I don't know if he's just kind of getting the kinks out from spring. He hadn't thrown since spring training anyway. It had been a while. So I don't know. He said he was healthy and ready to go the next night. He was said if the Cardinals had the lead going into the 9th inning on Sunday, that he was ready to go again on back-to-back nights, even though he threw almost like 30 pitches on
Mhm.
Saturday. So he says he's fine. Cardinals aren't panicking, but it's definitely the plan for them this season is to get these guys like Gibson, Lynn, Michaelis, when Sonny Gray comes back. 6 innings. We need that.
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
we're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, and it hasn't been like for the Padres, they've had bullpen issues too, but it's because just the bullpen. This isn't a question of, oh no, like our starters didn't perform. The starters were okay. Not amazing. They were definitely underwhelming based on what they are usually known for. You know, a Musgrove, a King, you know, those type of guys I think have a little bit of a higher expectations than I think some of the Cardinals starters outside, you know, your Sonny Gray types. So for the Padres, it's a lot of new faces of the bullpen. It's going to be curious to see how former Cardinals manager Mike Schultz manages it.
Yeah.
Hopefully, also for my listeners, you'll be listening to this after the first game is completed. So hopefully something awful didn't happen and that, you know, I just look like a buffoon or either of us really. But yeah, that's going to be it for the Padres too. And then this Cardinals lineup, I do have some like questions and fears with it. You know, there's Wynn and Gorman. You know, Gorman was low key kind of okay last year, especially for a young guy, like hitting for a decent amount of power. I think he hit what was it, 27 home runs last year? Yeah, 27. It's pretty good, all things considered, right? Even especially since I think some people might have expected him to take more time adjusting. And then you still got Jordan Walker, who defensively, Tatis might be a little bit better.
A smidge better. I would say I would give the nod by a hair.
Yeah, for those who don't know,
Gold Glover.
Yeah, for those who don't know, also Jordan Walker like actually was a really good batter last year for this Cardinals team, which is again why I kind of am worried. Like this Cardinals lineup is definitely intimidating in a lot of ways, but Jordan Walker was oh boy, at least if you go by some of the advanced statistics last year. Defensive runs saved, my lord. It just wasn't great, man.
No, it was great. Rough. It was a work in progress. He had to learn. He had to actually learn the position by at the major league level. Like, you know, he came up as a third baseman, and so yeah, you're worked up about Walker. I can hear you, buddy.
Yeah,
all right.
minus 16 defensive runs, minus 14 outs above average, not great there.
Yeah.
And I'm also wondering, or not to cut you off, I'm also wondering, are you worried about Nolan Arenado? And this isn't coming as a Manny Machado lover. You know, I can throw all the shots at the fact that Goldschmidt won the MVP, and I think Manny should have, because, you know, it's blah, 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 blah. We could get into that. I'll upset some of your listeners real quick. But in all seriousness, Arenado has been basically outside of the 1 year when he had a 7-win season and was third in MVP voting. Basically, since 2020, he's only had like one Nolan Arenado type of season. I still think he's a good player, but are you at all worried that like the offense of Arenado, this might just be a defensive first player?
I'm not, because I feel like last year he was dealing with some back problems, and so far this year he's coming in healthy. He looked really awkward against the Dodgers pitchers, but you know the Dodgers have that effect on hitters. Like, it just is what it is. So I think because he started off really good in spring training. And, you know, he got off to a slow start last year, too, where he was making these kind of weird swings, which, you know, I want to say that, like, it's not a trend, but until he breaks out of it, because he's in this power slump right now, which is a little shocking. And that's something you worry about. But there were a few at-bats where, you know, he hit some line drives, hit the ball hard, and it was right at people. So I think Nolan breaks out of it. I've been, you know, preaching the fact that I think this is going to be the Nolan Arenado revenge tour in 2024, because people like you are questioning whether or not that this is starting to be the decline. It's okay that they're saying, you know, hey, 32 years old. Is this where he's starting to go down the hill? And knowing Nolan the way he is, I feel like that is something that will motivate him highly, which is what we heard about him this offseason, that he's worked as hard as he ever has, because, you know, for the first time, he's not the Gold Glove winner. He wasn't the best third baseman.
He really, that was weird, man. Like, his defensive statistics are Hall of Fame caliber, and if he stinks for the rest of his career, and I'm not saying that, and I don't want that, like, the defense alone might make people be like, I don't care if he played some of his career cores. Did you see that man's glove? Like, he was a platinum glove like every year. So I am worried about that, just because some of the statistics. So I don't know. I'm curious. Was it just a 1-year outlier, or is this the beginning? I think is going to be a big question. But even regardless, Cardinals lineup, at least in terms of hitting, defenses has some questions with the Arenado thing, and certainly Jordan Walker. But definitely a test for the Padres team, especially when it comes to their bullpen that has been having a rough start. For sure.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So should be a fun series on our side of things. Two names. You mentioned Nolan Gorman earlier because you guys are starting 3 righties against the Cardinals.
Yes,
So I
yes.
would say keep an eye out. Gorman, and then I would also say Alec Burleson would be a name that you guys might want to keep an eye on. He is one of those contact hitters, not a ton of pop at all, but he's one of those contact hitters. He's been a DH for the series against the Dodgers, had some pretty good at-bats, doesn't strike out a lot. So he's one of those annoying dudes. You're going to be like, who the hell is this guy? And why is he bothering me? And why has he got a 9-pitch at bat going? This is crap. He's a guy that I would keep an eye on for the Padres listeners out there as well. But first game tonight at Petco, they'll play 3 in a row. And, for all the analysis on what's going on with the Padres, make sure you check out my man Javier Reyes over there. You can find him on Twitter X, and he's very, very capable of chit-chatting with even Cardinals fans on Twitter. If you guys,
I love y'all. I have no beef whatsoever.
Hopefully, we get a chance to see Joker Javi at some point. If the Cardinals can annoy him enough, maybe Joker Javi comes out. You'll have to go look at the videos if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about to understand. There's the hat. You'll have to understand what I'm talking about. But
I've left that life behind. I hope I've left that life behind. But yeah, we'll have to see.
I appreciate you joining us for this crossover. Again, thanks for making Locked On Cardinals and Locked On Padres your first listen every day. If you haven't already, give both of us a follow on Twitter X, and like and subscribe on YouTube for both the channels. And we appreciate all of you guys. You guys are the best fans in baseball for a reason. And we'll see you next time on Locked On Padres and Locked On Cardinals.